What if we could de-stress our brain, improve our mood, and just feel all around better and even mitigate EMFs by something we wear around our neck, something we place in our home, or even by our bed? Today, I have Philipp on, and we are talking about Leela Quantum. And why are we talking about this? We're talking about it because I've been wearing this necklace. If you're watching me on video, you've seen it. I've been wearing it for years, and I would say probably the top question I get in my direct messages is, what is the thing you're wearing around your neck? And Philipp, I've got to tell you, I've been asked if it's a vibrator. I've been asked if it's someone's ashes. No, it's not either of those. And it's funny because a lot of my audience will go and grab this necklace, not even understanding it. And I'm not great at explaining it. And there's so much more to it. So Philipp, thanks for being on. I wanted to get into the science and why you develop these things and do these really work, or is it in my head? So thank you so much, Philipp.
Yeah, they really work, and it has been shown and proven in placebo-controlled studies very clearly to work in 100% of the cases. Whether you believe it or not is really not relevant at all. And yeah, so what happens with this capsule is, so the capsule itself is infused with specific frequencies that you can say stimulate our self-healing powers on an energetic, emotional, and physical level. So it instantly strengthens our biofield. That's how it acts, because it's made with frequencies and with quantum energy. So it has a field that's maybe 5-6 feet big. I can't even show it here. And so when you wear it around your neck or you put it in your pocket, that also would work. You sort of have this field around you, and the frequencies are vibrating in your field, and frequency is the same as information. So it's an information in there that literally signals to your energy system constantly to repair itself, to heal itself, to get into positive mode and working mode, basically. So that may sound still a little bit like, oh, wow, how would that work? But it really works because it translates into the physical, and you can instantly see changes in the brain waves that are positive. You can see changes in the blood. We've shown that it mitigates the negative effects of electromagnetic fields, and it improves your heart rate variability. For people that have never heard what that even is, the heart rate variability, that is pretty much linked to your autonomic nervous system. So if your heart rate variability improves, it means you are more balanced, right? And when it is bad, then it means you're totally stressed, you're out of balance.
So Philipp, I'm going to back up here because I already know my listeners, and I know you said a few words that right away they said, what does that even mean? So we're going to bring this down a few levels, and I want to be really transparent with my audience. I am a non-woo-woo person. That is not how I would describe myself. I'm not somebody who meditates on crystals or does anything weird. Like, some of you don't think that's weird. To me, it's not the thing that I do. So I could not explain why when I put this necklace on me, I feel calm. It calms me and I almost crave it. And I didn't understand what that was about. And then I noticed when I put your block in the center of my house, I liked being in that room more. And then when I noticed, okay, if I feel good here, what if I put it by my bed? Or what if I put it while I'm working, which I do right now, in my office? How does that change how I feel? And I absolutely noticed some changes, and I could not explain why. So I'm going to ask you some of that again, but help us understand, even on a really basic level, like what that even means, because some of my listeners know and some don't understand. Like, what does it mean to say frequency or quantum energy? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah. So I think the most important thing to understand, and if someone is completely new to this, then it may take a while to understand that, but eventually you will understand it because it's the most fundamental truth of our existence. We are energy and frequency at core. We're not a physical meat bag. We have a physical meat bag that we run around with. But the one operating this meat bag isn't the meat bag itself. It is energy and consciousness. So that's the first thing we need to understand, that we're basically a whole bunch of vibration, right? And you know that you've probably heard that before, that even on a physical level, we're over 99% water on a molecular weight level. But we don't think about it, right? If we
Right.
drive our car, we're not aware that we're over 99% water. We never think about it, right? But it is a fact.
Mhm.
Now, even water is over 99% space, but that space isn't empty space, like really completely empty. You can call it empty in a way, but that goes too deep. It's energy. It's energy behind that. So the quantum energy we talk about is the fundamental energy layer of existence. So, and within this quantum field, all of the different frequencies exist. And what is a frequency? So frequencies, everything has a frequency. You've heard of sound frequencies,
Of
right?
course.
It matters, whether I play a 432 hertz frequency or 32 frequency or any other.
Like
There are
528
differences.
is kind of my happy place if I
Or
listen to
528,
528.
yeah, they call it also the miracle sound frequency, right? So you've heard of that. Then there's so-called rife frequencies, right? So they're more in the electrospectrum. Then you have electromagnetic fields and radiation like 3G, 4G, 5G, Wi-Fi signals. Those are in the electromagnetic spectrum, but those are also frequencies. Now those we call non-native electromagnetic fields. Those are harmful to the body, for example. But then you have other frequencies as well, like etheric frequencies, because so the frequency of love, for example, that would be an etheric
Mhm.
frequency, the frequency of peace, right? That is etheric because it doesn't exist in physical form. It literally is a frequency vibration that you can sort of pull out of the ether or you can create it within you.
Okay, so this is what I'm going to say. Philip, correct me if I'm saying this wrong, but a big part of what I do is simplify things for people. So when I was trying to figure out what this all meant and why I felt different with it, and I started talking to people about it, they would say things like, well, that doesn't make sense. Like, you can't see that, or you can't, what is that? And the way that the way that I explained it is, if you're listening to a song, how is that song getting to you? Like, where is that coming from? And when you say it like that, people don't really know, like, well, it's coming out of my phone. Okay, but how did it get to your phone? Or where is the song coming from? Same thing with thinking of like a telephone call. Like, how are you calling from one device and it goes to another place? Or internet. I'm typing something on the internet and then it's coming up someplace else, or an email is getting sent. Would you explain that that's a frequency too? Like, is that what that means? Like, it's translating information and we don't see that happening. It's going. Do I sound
Yeah.
really dumb right now? I don't know.
No. I think that's great. It's also frequencies, and then there's a certain frequency band that is used to deliver it, right? You kind of need like a carrier wave to get it somewhere, and usually, in that spectrum, they use microwaves, right?
Right.
So that's also what you have in an electric car. It's literally microwaves, and what we use though is quantum energy, which is a level below that, and that is the same energy we have in each of our cells. So that people need to understand that if we're talking about electromagnetic fields, that is non-native, it is artificial, it is actually also quite disturbing to our physical body and biofield. But the quantum energy is what we have in each of our cells. So it is natural. It's the most natural thing we have, and therefore it is also inherently positive and supportive, because
Okay.
so if you do kinesiology testing, where some people may say, well, yeah, kinesiology, but go to someone that is really an expert in kinesiology and they can test anything for you. They give you a toxic substance and they would test that is not good for you. They give you something beneficial, they can test it's good for you. Anyway, you would test very, very quickly. And I do that frequently at these conferences where I tell people, hey, if you want to know what it does to your biofield, I'm happy to test you. I test them in a way that they can feel their own body
Mm-hmm.
strength before wearing the capsule. And they put on the capsule, and 10 seconds later, they feel how much stronger they get. So I don't test it for them. I
Right.
test it in a way that they can feel it. You instantly feel it. And that's pretty much how it works, because our cells crave that energy because it is being depleted in our daily lives from electromagnetic
That makes
fields,
sense.
from stressors, and so on.
Hey there, if you're finding value in this episode of Midlife Conversations, I would really appreciate it if you would hit that like button and subscribe. And when that little bell pops up, you want to hit that. That way you are notified of all new episodes so you don't miss a beat. Also, you subscribing and liking helps others find this content. And this allows me to keep growing, keep getting amazing new guests for you, and to keep sharing. So I think of myself, and some of my listeners feel this way about them, that I'm a highly sensitive person. Like I really can feel different environments. And just to give you an example, my husband and I were hiking recently and he did not feel a thing. But I was like, why do I just feel this headache and just not good? And what we noticed was there was these big power lines all around us. I felt it, he did not. And that is not an uncommon thing for us. Or if we're in a big city with lots of lights, I feel anxious and feel stressed. Where if I'm out, and this is most people, I think, you go out into nature in the middle of nowhere and you feel more calm and at peace. Same thing with maybe being by an ocean or being it's a different environment than being in a desert. We feel that. And if you're that type of person who can feel that difference, I would imagine you would respond really well to being very intentional with the frequencies you're putting around you. Did I say that right?
Absolutely, 100%. And it is really true because so while your husband is also exposed to those energies, he perceives it differently. He has a different level of perception, and he may also just have a different reaction to it as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that those frequencies don't exist. By the way, they 100% exist, and you can even measure them, right? It's just a matter of how we perceive energy, and that's one of the things I think that has fallen a little bit short in the last, decades, probably in humanity, and where things are changing now. That the quote unquote unseen is something that we're like, oh, that's sort of like a
Mm-hmm.
mystery, and then we may feel uncomfortable because we don't know much about it, right? If we have done math our lives, then it's very easy to calculate stuff and we feel very, very
Sure.
comfortable with it. But as we talk about energy, especially man, they're like, oh my God, I have no clue about it. Therefore, I rather discredit it or don't even go there. That's kind of like one of the common perceptions. But yeah, it doesn't change the fact that it exists. And just because, to be honest, that this works, you can just easily prove that. And if that's a new concept for some, well, just imagine going back to the 1600s or even to the
Mm-hmm.
1900s with me right now. And we talk to people on the streets and we can tell them what we can do with our cell phones. And they'll be like, I mean, you guys are nuts. I mean,
Yes, you're
that's
right.
just totally crazy stuff you're talking about. It's impossible. They would not believe it. Of course they wouldn't, right? Because that is the same thing with the new technology. Had I told you 10 years ago what you could do with AI today, you would have said no, it's not possible. And so, that is really not a good reason to say something can't work. And yeah, it's quite impressive actually, because by now we have over 60 different research projects and studies that have been completed, over 40 of those placebo controlled. So that means it rules out the
Mm-hmm.
placebo effect. It isn't there. And, yeah, but the necklace that's just the all-rounder product. This is cool, this is super helpful. But if we go into like the blocks that you mentioned, that's then the real deal. That's where a lot more is even possible, because the capsule can only cover quite short radios, and with the blocks you can literally generate a quantum field, and that can cover a whole home and neutralize the negative effects of electromagnetic fields. It can, improve your brain function quite significantly and your cellular function, as it,
Mm-hmm.
it has been proven by Dr. Robert Sheave at the University of Tulsa. This is probably an interesting one, even if you're not really into biohacking and health too much, but wouldn't it be interesting to know what it does to human cells
Yes.
and what it does in a control group where the control group is not exposed to our technology? No changes were measured, and then they measured the so-called ATP production. That is that's the energy that the mitochondria, the cells, produce. You can physically measure that. It was ramped up by 20 to 29%, which in the sense of ATP is massive. It's
Mm.
absolutely massive. It's not marginal. It's very, very big. And then wound healing or cell recovery is something, probably that's a concept that people can probably even easier understand than the energy production. So if you scratch cells with a laser, they're obviously damaged, right? So then you have a control group of millions of cells, of human cells, that are damaged, that don't get exposed to our technology. And then you have a so-called treated group that gets exposed to the technology, but it's done randomized and double blind. So it's completely placebo controlled definitely, but it's also you take the observer effect out.
Hmm.
People don't need to understand what that means, but it's the gold standard of study design, basically randomized and double blind. And it showed that the treated cells healed 46 to 100% faster than the control group cells. And that study was repeated 5 times again at the University of Tulsa by a guy who's very reputable in that space. So it is quite phenomenal what the right energetic environment can do. And of course, we probably will talk about the blood at some point, but it's not only that we can feel better with it, it literally does something on a physical level.
Okay, I got a lot of questions here. So people are going to say, but how? But
Mhm.
how? Like, what is that? And I know, like, especially with the necklace, people send me some very interesting questions. You're like, is it the rattle sound of the beads? No, it's not. Or does it matter? And what do you have to do with the beads inside? And like, how would you answer that?
So the first question I would answer with is, how does AI work? How does a tennis racket work? How does your phone work? Do you not use your phone? Do you not use your AI because you don't
Good
100%
question.
understand how it works? No, we don't need to understand all of that. And you may not be able to. I can tell you how it's done and what it does and show you the science, and you can try it for yourself. But that you will all understand it in 100% detail, that's a lot to ask for a
That
field
makes
that's
sense.
quite complex, right? It's actually
I
more
love that answer.
complex.
I've
Yeah.
never thought of it that way, but you're right. Like, we don't know. We just assume the laptop is going to be good or the phone's going to be good. We've never said how.
Yeah. Don't you, why do you plug in your phone to charge into the wall, even though you're not knowing how that actually
Ah,
works? Right? Do you even consume electricity? No, you don't. There's always a constant current. Like, people don't know anything about
that's
a
funny.
lot of different subjects. And now you want to be an expert in quantum technology and frequency medicine within 5 minutes. It's impossible. You can understand a little bit, so I can explain to you how it works. So we infuse these plates of the block, for example, with super concentrated quantum energy. And we did not invent quantum energy, obviously. That's a energy field that's always been there and will always be there. What we invented, though, and that's the real breakthrough here, is we found a method on how to harness that energy in a super concentrated fashion. And then we can sort of like infuse it into these objects, like in these metal plates, in such a concentrated form that when you align them, you have a quantum force field. The same way you would have a magnetic force field when you have one magnet in this hand and another magnet in this hand. At some point, you feel this, right?
Hmm.
But that's on the magnetic spectrum, so it's very physical. On the quantum level, it's less physical. Nevertheless, it's there, and you can measure easily all kinds of different effects. Even so, there's a method, redox potential. That's what it's called. No one will understand what that means unless you're a chemist, and you
Okay.
don't have to. It doesn't really matter, but it's a very, very quick way of measuring the so-called redox potential of a physical substance. So if you put any substance they tested, actually, you put in the block, afterwards the redox potential was optimized. And a chemist in Germany did this, I think, 10 or 12 times in a study with water to show the redox potential changes every time, even though it shouldn't change. If nothing was there, it wouldn't change, right? So there's obviously a force that affects the water so that
Hmm.
it changes, and you can measure that very, very quickly. And now if we get exposed to the block, we get near it, for example, but it's a greater effect if we put our hands inside. You can see in real time that your blood improves. That's quite fascinating. And there's a method out there called dark field microscopy, or some call it live blood analysis, where you can see in a magnified fashion your blood cells. You can literally see the red blood cells, you can see some of the white blood cells. You can, even when you're an expert, you can see things like parasitic load,
Wow.
and you could say see other things, right, that are relevant to your health. And it's your blood, and it's not an image that's just created, that's artificial. It's the real picture or video of your blood. And then when you expose yourself to, let's say, a 5G call or
Uh-huh.
something like that, you see how the blood starts to clot. Literally, each and every time that happens, if you're in a Wi-Fi free environment, then suddenly you turn Wi-Fi on or you have a 5G call, blood starts to clot.
Wow.
White blood cells tend to get paralyzed. So the white blood cells, they're important. They're sort of like part of our army to defend our immune system. You can say they are
Wow.
part of the immune system. And so what happens when you then introduce the block, even if there's a 5G call going on or a Wi-Fi as an example,
Mhm.
you suddenly see that the blood starts to declot. So we've proven in various double-blind studies that we were able to reverse stage 1 and stage 2 of blood clotting within just 10 minutes. That
That's
is absolute.
amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. And as you're talking, something that's coming up for me, I have a friend who was homeopath for years, homeopathic medicine.
Yeah.
And when I asked her why homeopathy works, or she said it's about frequencies. And for those of you that don't know what homeopathy is, it's like these little tiny pellets that you take that they infuse with a small amount of whatever it is you're trying to combat. So, I mean, I don't know homeopathy as well as she would have, but that's frequency. So actually, as you're speaking, I'm thinking this makes sense. That's kind of aligned with that, right? Like that's different for different reasons, but that would make sense. Like when you're talking about frequency and changing our blood and all this stuff, that's what homeopathy is supposed to be doing too. Is that accurate? Do those align?
Yes, so the homeopathy does it in a different way and has also a different mechanism because you could, for example, even in homeopathy, frequently they use even a poison and dilute
Mm-hmm.
it so much that doesn't exist anymore on a physical level, but it's there energetically, and then it can stimulate certain things in certain situations that are beneficial or can solve a problem or even on a physical level have interactions. So it's quite a fascinating world, the world of homeopathy. And indeed, there's nothing that you could show physically anymore because I've made
Mm-hmm.
homeopathy medicine before, and the way you do it is you put, let's say, some frankincense
Uh-huh.
into water, for example, and then you dilute it, right? You dilute it, and then you take that water that you diluted into more water, just like a drop of that water into more water, and then you dilute it again, and then you do it again. That's how you have the potencies.
Mm.
And at some point, there's nothing physical left anymore. It's only the information that remains, and it gets more transparent. That's
It's like
the
structuring water.
homeopathy.
When people talk about structure too, that would be similar because isn't structuring water putting
No,
frequency or no, is that different?
that would be different. And actually, so our technology has been shown to structure water, which is phenomenal. So if you put water or tea or juices into the blocks, a lot of people use it for that. It structures water, so it makes coherent water, and it does the same thing with foods. That's why a lot of people report that their food sensitivities go away or are significantly reduced when they charge, the
Okay,
food
I
substances.
do that every day. I put my glass of water inside my block, my large block that's in my kitchen. I put my fruit in there. I put my supplements in there. I didn't know why I was doing it. I just knew I was supposed to. So, say what you said what was the words you just used? What's it doing to your food when
Hmm.
what's happening to it when
Yeah.
you're putting it
So
in there?
so it energetically optimizes it. That will be the
Okay.
general term. But if you use the more technical term, it's said you structure water with it. And what does that mean? So people may have heard about the Emoto Institute out of Japan. That's Masaru Emoto is worldwide recognized as the pioneer on earth in regards to figuring out how you can change the energetic nature of water and how you can visualize it. He has died already, but his office institute in Japan, in Tokyo, still exists, and his son is running it. So they tested our technology about 3 years ago, and what they found is that our technology was able to improve water faster than any other method they'd ever tested before. And so they have this control water, that's just like the baseline water. And then
Hmm.
they can show one of these beautiful crystals. It's a certain hexagonal structure that this water crystal his, and that's what they're looking for. And that water only had one. Within 3 minutes, already our weakest device, the weakest block we have, was able to make 5 of these beautiful crystals out of one. And
Wow.
so now you're like, okay, so but beautiful. So what does that mean now for me? So if you take it in, your cells can leverage that water in a completely different way than other water or that control water. So it really hydrates you. It really can rejuvenate you. That's what water is supposed to do. Now, don't think you can get bacteria or dirt out of it with the blocks. No, our
It's not
technology
filtering
cannot
it.
do that.
Yeah,
You
it's
have
not
to have
filtering it.
filtered water to begin with, but then you can structure it with our tech. And that is why people use it also for their foods, because in raspberries, in anything, there's a lot of water. In us, there's over 99% water, right? So think about it.
Yeah. Okay. So I didn't. So it's a good thing that I've been doing this. What about? So we have the big block in our kitchen, and my husband sticks his bananas on there, and it annoys me because I don't like bananas. And I'm like, and I think he's changing the frequency of my food now because he's putting his bananas on here. Is there any? Does it do anything putting stuff on top of the block? And is there a limit to how long you should be putting it on? And if you're using the block like central in your house to help with EMF, is keeping something on top gonna ruin that?
So first of all, the blocks indeed mitigate the negative effects of electromagnetic fields, and whether you put something on top or inside or so, it doesn't impact that. It
Okay.
still does that. It's as if, like women are very good in multitasking,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's the blocks are very, very good in multitasking. Think about it that way. So it doesn't matter that they also take care of the banana while they're maintaining that field. So, but anything that's more dense, you want to put inside the block to get it charged or
Okay.
infused. Now, certain things that are not so dense, like water, for example, any type of beverage, they absorb energy so quickly, and they absorb that energy. If you put it on top or right next to it, you get a better charge than when you put it inside. With the banana, they will get a little bit of a charge, but if he wanted to really charge the bananas, then he would have to put them inside, and then just one
Okay.
minute, a minute and a half would already be enough to do that. And I would not do it for too long, because that could also, in the sense of bananas or pineapples, for example, accelerate the ripening process,
Ah,
possibly.
what's funny is he doesn't care or know about charging bananas. He's not, he was just doing it because he thought it was a good place to put them, which was funny. So we had our little banana argument about him. Like, that's not what my block is for. But now I'm going to explain to him if he wants the benefits, he can put it in there for a minute and a half, and that will make a big difference.
Yes, and you can reference certainly the one interesting experiment that we did live on stage at Dave Asprey's big biohacking conference already 4 years ago, where Todd Shipman, he's a biohacker, quite well
Mm-hmm.
known. He's allergic to honey, avocado, and to crab meat. And
Okay.
he figured out at the time that each time he infuses these substances with the block, with the quantum energy, he could tolerate them with no allergic reaction. And then he
Wild.
thought first, "Ooh, maybe my allergy's gone completely." So he tried it again without charging the substances, and he got allergic reactions. So on stage, it's you can find it on the Quantum Power channel on YouTube still. There's a video that shows that in front of over 100 people. Todd gets crab meat in his arm, done by scientist Ian
Right.
Mitchell with the derma roller, and develops a redness right away. It's almost like
Okay.
blister type of reaction that's happening, very visible, very itchy. The same crab meat they put in the block live in stage. Then after several minutes, they take it out. He puts it with a derma roller in his other arm. Zero allergic
That is
reaction.
wild.
Yes,
I
and
gotta
if that,
find that and see this. That's super cool. That's
yeah,
really
and
wild.
if that isn't enough, a clinic in Munich did 2 pilot studies, and because it's pilot studies, we don't claim anything in regards to
Mm-hmm.
food sensitivities at this point. And I must say, don't try it at home for food
Yeah, keep
sensitivities,
your
at least.
EpiPen nearby just in case. Don't. This is not
Yeah.
medical
So
advice.
no, yeah, but honestly, there are certainly, if you get
Yeah.
into real allergies, those can be very dangerous, and certainly I don't want to stimulate that anyone now tries that because of that. But there's a lot of evidence pointing to that. So the study found that the stress response and allergic response of the body was reduced by about 55 to 85% with all kinds of different substances that they tested. People with a lactose food sensitivity, for example, or gluten. They also tested sugar. So if I eat chocolate or a dessert, and that's kind of like I love desserts, but I put them in the block for a few minutes before I eat them because I know it reduces my body's stress response.
So let me tell you some real life examples. And again, this is not Natalie's science. This is just my actual what I do. So I have my phone on me a lot, which I know I shouldn't, but it's always there. And sometimes if I'm working on it or holding it too long, I actually can feel that in my hands. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. Some people are like, what are you talking about? Some people know what I'm saying. I can feel it. And I know that that's the EMFs and whatever. So one thing I do, I'll put my hand inside the block like that, and it undoes that. Like I can literally feel it undoing it. So when someone tells me I don't understand, or that sounds woo woo, or sounds whatever, I understand that people think that. To me, I think, but it's my knowing. Like I know the difference. I know what my hand feels like holding my cell phone versus putting it in here. So it's a knowing to me. And it's the same reason I wear the necklace. I don't fully understand it. Like we've go on, just like I fully don't understand how a laptop is working or how my cell phone takes a call. But I can tell you, I feel different with this. And one thing I've been doing, Philip, and now you're almost challenging me on it, is I usually take it off when I go to the gym because I don't want it all around me. But what you just shared was that when you muscle test or you test people, they're actually stronger with it, which makes me think I shouldn't take it off when I'm working out.
I think that just depends on you and how comfortable you feel with it. You could try to maybe put it in your pocket during the workout because, maybe when you run or so, you may not want it to, just move the whole time. So that's
or
a
the
way.
card even. I guess I could put the card.
Yeah, put it in the pocket and try that. That's definitely something you can do. And then, when you're working out on, let's say, I don't know, a stepper or whatever, then certainly you have electromagnetic fields there as well. So, that's something that would certainly help you with that.
This is the card. If you guys are watching on YouTube, it's a card. So it fits perfectly like in a wallet or your pocket or your sports bra, whatever, but it's all the same thing. So and you've really just changed my perspective on having to explain this because I'm like, I don't know how to explain it, but you're right. We don't know how to explain anything. What happens is when it becomes common knowledge, we do it like we explain that we have to charge our phone in a socket because we know the phone's not going to work, but we can't explain how that all works scientifically, but we're not charging ourselves. That's what I'm realizing. And we just need to know that we need to do that. Is that the same? And I know this is a different topic, but maybe you can help. Do you know what PEMF is? And
yes.
Okay, how is that working? Is that similar technology?
That's completely different technology and does also very different things.
Okay.
So pulse electromagnetic field stands for, PEMF. And that will be a mat, for example, where you get electromagnetic stimulation for a short period of time. Very important. You would not want that for longer extended periods of times. And it can stimulate positive effects in the body. That's also frequencies.
Okay.
It's very physical frequencies, though, and has a completely different mechanism on how it operates.
It feels like little shocks. Yeah, I've gone back with if it's good for me or not because you can actually feel these little zaps, and I don't love that. But I experiment because I try everything. I literally try everything.
So if you happen to have a PMF mat, we know that from many, many biohackers is that they have a block in their home and then they use the PMF and it amplifies the experience, or let's say the effects of PMF mats if you use our technology as well.
Interesting. Okay, so what do you advise someone that's still listening? Because I know some people have tuned this out. They're like, this is nuts. Actually, let me ask you a question about that first before I ask my next question. I've got people that have very strong faith, their strong belief in God, and I do too. I have a strong belief in God, and I have my understanding and my belief and my personal faith there. Some people get very agitated at me when I share about this, and they say things like, that's not of God, or I turn to God for my anxiety and all that. And I'm thinking God created all this. So that's sort of my answer. Have you heard this before? And how would you answer that?
I have actually not heard that before, but I can certainly imagine that
Mhm.
there's people out there that think that way. And yes, so, for some people that may be hard to swallow, but God isn't a thing or a guy that sits on the cloud looking down and just saying, well, this part exists or that part exists. God is literally everything. Everything. There's nothing that isn't God. God is the infinite, eternal super consciousness
Mm,
that exists and envelops everything with no beginning and with no end. It's not a thing, it's not a guy, it's not a girl, whatever, and it's certainly not a trans. It's
mhm,
literally everything. And so now for me what's very important is that we're distinguishing between, because we're in this reality, right? There's a big difference for me between natural and something that comes from the natural forces and that supports these natural energetic life forces,
mhm,
right, that we have in our biofield, that every plant has in, and then that any animal has in their biofield, versus something artificial and synthetic.
mm,
That would be a robot operated by AI, is not filled with life.
that is such a good example,
It
Philip.
was still created eventually out of everything that also certainly God created, but it is something synthetic. It's something unnatural.
Yeah.
Now, and the same is pretty much true with electromagnetic fields that are non-native, like the 5G towers or things like that. It's in the same category of unnatural.
Okay.
The quantum energy that we're talking about and that we're leveraging, that's the most natural thing that exists
That's
because it's part of our cells. And that is also the only reason why it's so beneficial. It's not that we made it that or something. It's just,
it's not
it's
manipulated at
there.
all.
It's
It's
there. It's
there.
meant for us to be used, to be leveraged, to be there in absolute abundance. And the problem is that we live in a society right now where the unnatural, the artificial, sort of is promoted very bigly, and it's up to us to actually
You're right.
reclaim our natural existence, and our energy and our technology happens to help with that because they're sort of like generators to make this available. Like if you're walking in the desert and you're almost dead because you have no water, and then suddenly there's someone with a bar that offers you a bunch of great, amazing water, and you drink and you're like, oh, that's exactly what I needed. That's pretty much what we're doing. We found a
Wow.
way on how we can create water in the desert to make it available. And
Okay,
that's
I'm
how people need to look at
so
it.
glad I asked you that. I almost didn't. So, for listeners, I actually, as I'm listening to you, that just really opened my mind to a whole new way of thinking. And I just want to share, I have a different belief about God than you, and that's okay. Like, we have different. But what you just said really, really resonated with me. And I think of it that way too. Like, I think of, okay, for example, I'm going to talk about, I mentioned crystals earlier. I certainly do not pray to crystals or meditate on crystals, but I think they're pretty. Like, I have one on my desk that I think is pretty. And I've always said, anytime someone's ever said to me, that's not of God, or I say, but God made this. Like, it came from earth. Like, I think it's gorgeous. I'm not praying to it. I'm not doing anything. It's not a statue. I just think it's pretty. And same thing if I go outside in nature and put my feet on the grass and I'm in sunlight and I feel very connected and amazing. Where if I'm in filming podcasts all day with all my artificial lights and I don't feel amazing. Like, it's so what you just said about man-made and forced versus what's natural really, really resonated with me. And I hope that did for others too, because you're right. Why wouldn't we play with the stuff that's just really made?
That's one of the most important subjects to understand and to watch out for, because we can heal so many things with these natural, abundantly available forces
Mm-hmm.
like the sun, for example. The sun
Mm-hmm.
has been demonized in the public narrative for a long time, yet it's the most amazing healer out there. Of course,
Yes.
you wouldn't want to lay naked in the sun at the equator for 24/7, right?
My
You're going to
husband does
be,
exactly that pretty much, just so you know.
yeah, as long as
I
you,
joke every day. I'm like, you're out naked sunbathing again. That's
yeah,
his thing.
but it's the light spectrum that is so amazing for our skin, for our
Yeah.
melanin levels in the body, and the blue light is artificial inside, and it hurts our eyes. We don't even know what this does. Again, that's something where people don't have a clue. They put all these LED light bulbs into their homes, and I can tell you, I've changed it up. So
We
I
have
put the
to.
old ones in there, and I tell you why. So with the blue light, it is so bad for your eyes and your whole body. You can measure that. It is really terrifying if you dig into that. And one thing it does, an LED has this flicker effect. It's sort of like 10,000 times or 1,000 times per second. It flickers,
Hmm.
and it's so fast that we can't see it because it's so fast. So if you then run that in slow motion, suddenly it's like tick 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 in slow
Wow.
motion, right? And then you can see it and you're like, oh my God, like this is crazy. I would never want to be exposed to something like that. It's just we're not noticing it, we're not paying attention. So that is why you feel so great when you're outside in the sunlight versus so bad when you're
Yeah.
inside with the blue light.
So we did the same thing. We used to have the big white fluorescent lights up overhead because they looked like outdoor light. That was what we liked. We've gradually changed that out. In fact, we have red light by our beds. The only time now I have like direct facing white light is recording. And like I do that to make bright, and then I instantly when I'm done, I go outside. It's my way of just kind of getting around it. I also have been doing. I mean, I literally have this on my desk, like right under in front of me. So I'm constantly thinking how to counter it. For somebody that's like, okay, I'm hearing this conversation, I want to sort of dabble and try. Where do you, I want to say what I would say first is get the necklace. What is this actually called? It's a heel capsule. And because this is like the easiest way to kind of jump in, like if you, and then I'll tell you how to get deeper. But the heel capsule, some people have been confused, and I don't even know the answer, Philip. So maybe you can help me. I know that you have the small petite one, which is what I have on now, and you have the larger one. But it says like men or women, are they actually different? And like, if people are going to get the heel capsule, how do they know which one to get for them?
So we used to have a capsule that's called the heel capsule. And now what we have nowadays is the advanced version, basically.
Okay.
It's called Heel 360.
Okay.
And it's available in a larger fashion and in a smaller fashion. The smaller one is what I have, and that's what you're wearing,
Okay.
that we made for women and for kids at some point because our community asked, could you have a smaller version? And
Mm-hmm.
now a lot of men like it too. So but you see also the bigger ones being
Yes.
used, and there's not a big difference because the frequencies are exactly the same. The big one is a little bit more powerful, but it's not that much powerful that you make your decision based on that. Rather, I would make the decision, okay, what do I like better? If I'm a really strong man, I can
Mm-hmm.
wear both, or I prefer the bigger one. If I'm, for other people, maybe it's too heavy on the neck. That's why you probably enjoy the smaller one. So you do that, and that is for men and women exactly
So
the
it doesn't
same. That
matter
is
which size you get.
exactly. You would find we do have a women's booster capsule and a man's booster capsule, but that is secondary. And I
Okay.
would definitely get started with the Heal 360 unless you feel, you really resonate with
Right.
men's booster or women's booster, which is specifically for women or men over 40, but it has a completely different frequency set.
So, like, I'm 53. Should I be looking at adding the women's booster one instead?
So you could certainly get that, or at one of the conferences where you may see us maybe test it out,
Let's see.
or just order it and then see, in certain situations that may be beneficial for you. So, we have heard from several women that, when they have their period, for example,
Mm-hmm.
that's a specifically stressful time, that the women's booster is really great during that time. The Heal 360, though, also has benefits, and it's again, the Heal 360 is the all-rounder.
Right.
It's a great starting point. And by
So,
the way, if people want to get involved or hear from other people than me, who I'm the founder, I can tell you all about the research and everything, and of course how everything works. But if you want to hear from real people other than you, I mean, you've been
uh-huh.
sharing, how you feel with it and what you notice. But we have huge Telegram groups
Oh,
with,
wow.
and they're private, so we don't want any bots. We don't want any people there that are
Yeah.
not interested. But thousands of people are there, and you could access that through our website and then click on the Telegram icon, and then you can get into this group and you can ask questions. You can ask,
That's
okay,
cool.
so hey, I'm new to this. What would you recommend? Or I don't know, I have this. Have you had experience with using this for that? And people will answer you within like an
Wow.
hour or two. Yeah.
Okay. So there's these little quantum energy balls. I joke on social media, I'm like my purple balls that are in here. Do we need to do anything with them? Like I have a friend that she puts them out in the outside every now and then, and she like, what am I? Mine have just been stuck in here. Do I need to do anything?
That's a complete waste of time. She
Okay.
can do that if she feels better, but it doesn't make the capsule or the beads any better because the unlike crystals that indeed take on energies
Mm-hmm.
over time and they become sort of dormant over time,
Okay.
the capsules and beads don't
Good
lose
to
their
know.
charge.
So we don't have to charge
And
them in the moon or anything like that.
yeah, there's nothing you need to do with them. You can say, every other year or so you could stop by at our booth somewhere at any of those biohacking conferences or health optimization summit and then put it in our strongest block that we then have and then
Mm-hmm.
to make it even stronger, but it's not that it loses any of its charge.
What about the blocks? So I have a larger block. I have the small one that's a travel block, but I put it because I can move it in different rooms or whatever. Does that matter? And some people have asked me that too, and I don't know. Like, where if they want to go into the blocks, they need the big, large one to start. What do you recommend?
Yeah, so the smaller version is indeed for the car or for traveling or going to the restaurant, right? So because it's so portable,
Mm-hmm.
even Dave Asprey travels with a travel block, right? That's
I mean, I
what he
travel with
uses
it around
for
my house, like whatever room I'm in.
or that, right? But then if you want to put food in there
Mm-hmm.
or even bananas or all that, you'll see that that one is too small for that, right? So
Sure.
if you want to charge your meat plates and your big bottles of water or whatever, then I would go with one of the larger blocks. For example, the super block. That's the one that was designed to specifically live
Mm,
in people's kitchens. I mean, people put it in their living room too because it's a beautiful
yeah.
design object basically, but in the kitchen that's where people literally use it. It's a
Yeah.
device that people use,
And you said
that
it
if
helps like with the whole area anyway. It's
oh
not just,
yeah,
so it's
yeah,
going to help with your
yeah,
whole house if you do
yeah,
that.
you don't need to even use it for it to have benefits, but then if you want to go into just infusing your foods or water etc with it, you just place it inside real quick and then
No,
take it out.
you're reminding me. I used to have your water bottle. Mine. I don't know where. I think I lent it to somebody, and now I don't have it. So I'm gonna have to get another water bottle. But I don't. Does the water bottle? It's just a way of automatically you put your water in it, and it's already gonna do that. So you don't have to then put it in the block.
Yeah, so the water bottle is pretty much the same thing as the capsule.
Okay.
It's the same principle. It has the same frequencies, but it adds convenience. So if you put your water inside the water bottle or your tea or your oranges, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right? It gets structured, not as strong as if it was in the block, but it still gets structured. And it's also charged with these frequencies, though the frequencies are infused in the water. So if you drink it, you get the benefit of all these frequencies as you drink it.
Well,
And obviously, if you then, take your water bottle to a yoga lesson or to in your car or wherever, it's just a convenient way of doing it. You could use this capsule though and put it right next to a glass of water for about, let's say, 10 minutes. And then also these frequencies would also all be in the water, but that's a little bit more
yeah.
complicated to do.
But you know what, ladies? Just a little bit. You think you're not even thinking about Philip as I'm drinking my wrong water bottle right now. Also, like a lot of us are using the small neck ones or the straws, which creates the lip wrinkles. So your water bottle is wider, so it's actually like a cup. And also it's cool because it's metal with wood around it, so it's really pretty and it's not, so you're not dealing with plastics or glass that's gonna break. Because I had switched to glass water bottles for a while, but you drop them and they break. So
Yes,
it's also
correct.
very functional. I like that about it. Yours is the first water bottle I've seen that's wood and metal. It's like that's smart. I only you see glass or plastic or these other things.
Yep, that is true.
So you all, if you know, I was going to ask you all for everybody to be able to get a discount. So if you go to midlifeconversations.com/Leela, so midlifeconversations.com/Leela, you'll have access to a discount. I think, or if you go separately to their site, you use code Natalie Jill. That should be connected, but check out their site. What I have personally is the blocks. I have the travel block. I have the larger block in my kitchen. I have the Heal 360 capsule on my own chain. I bought my own chain for it. Someone's going to ask. So I got it at David Yurman, but you can put it on any chain. It does come with like a little, he has a chain. I just was wearing it so much. I wanted a nicer chain with it. And then I also have the wallet. Is this what it's called? The wallet card, or what is this called? the card?
It's called just a frequency card, and we have about 30 different frequency cards for all kinds of different use cases, whether that's weight management or Olympic performance or
Oh, wow.
calm and rest, for all kinds of different use cases, there's something you can find.
That's amazing. So I hope this was helpful. I know I didn't get into a lot of the but how, but as he explained, that also makes sense. Like I couldn't tell you how my podcast equipment is all connected and working. I can't tell you how us recording on Squadcast is all connected. So that makes sense. But I can absolutely tell you, I personally feel totally different. And that's why you see me wearing this most of the time. And if I have a different necklace on, it's usually in my pocket then or someplace else. But I have this on my body because I crave it. If you are a person that never feels anything and you're super skeptical, it's probably not for you. I'm going to be real. Like if you relate to what I'm saying and you're super sensitive and can feel things, which I think a lot of women can, then I believe this will help you, especially anxiety, brain fog, your mood. There's something about it. I put it on and I feel different. So thank you so much, Philipp, for being here today.